Hey everyone, welcome to Bad Publicity. Jameson.
Sly Squid.
And I'm Corp Morn.
Today we're talking about a pretty controversial card, the Weyland Archer. It's Sentry Ice, and so let me know your feelings.
Okay, I am a very hardcore criminal player, and I've pulled my favorite card up right now, and I think it's everybody's favorite card. It's Emergency Shutdown. There's a lot of times where I'm playing, and I think the Corp does something, and I kind of laugh to myself, because I'm like, that was stupid. When they res archers, I laugh out loud, because I think archers do not, in the original core set, they were huge, and I mean, we didn't really understand running without a rig yet. Since then we figured it out. So I could make, I could go 6 turns without installing a program to run. I mean, you might not be getting through, but you're making them stop you. You're keeping them really low on money, which means that generally they're not going to be advancing things really early. If you run really aggressive, you're going to keep them really low on cash, and they're not going to be able to advance those. I mean, shy of the Weyland 1-point ices or the NBNs, which is primarily where you see this ice. But yeah, you hit it with a mandatory or what's the one I'm thinking? Yeah, forced activation orders. Really early, and it's just, I don't know. And again, I run Ninja, so even if I do run into it, it's only costing me $7.
That's still an expensive.
Or $9.
Still an expensive break, though.
It's an expensive break.
Is Archer too expensive to have? The expenses of trashing or forfeiting an agenda is.
Okay, the problem with that is
I'm gonna take this real quick. Okay, you can go on your point. Now, a lot of people see the 4, and I'm gonna boil this right down like I normally do. Okay, we're looking at a 3 advanced agenda. That's gonna cost you 1 to draw, 1 to play, and then 6 to advance. So that's an insane amount of time that you've spent just to score 1 point of agenda. I mean, we don't have a 2 advancement 1 point agenda yet. That could happen, but you are spending a lot to get those agendas in play. So when I look at this 4 cost, it turns right into a 10 for me. Like, that's costing you 10 advancements to play. It's just okay. That's my little rant about that.
I'll go on mine. I'll break it down. It's even simpler than that. If you've worked hard to score an agenda, whether you paid 3 for it, 4 for it, 5 for it, 6 for it, depending on what you're playing here, and somebody is making a run on something, and they're going to take yet another agenda from you, and all you've got in the way to stop them is Archer, and you got no better way to res it except for to pay the cost. You might be ditching an agenda that you worked super hard on just to stop them from stealing another agenda. Most times, if it balances out, they just won't do it, and they're taking an agenda from you, and you get to keep yours. So there's really no gain for the Corp whatsoever. It's basically just a loss. So yeah, it's a very difficult card to do well. It's a very difficult card to run as efficiently as it would need to be, and to be as brutal as it needs to be, because the card is brutal.
But the rewards here are very plentiful.
Yeah.
And if the timing is right, if I'm trashing a 1-point agenda and you're running against these subroutines,
yeah,
some people might say that this is one of the best ice right now in the game.
If you're camping a couple of 1-point agendas, yes, it is pretty formidable. It's good, and especially if the runner is basically anything but criminal, because criminals have so many ways to dick with this and to make it not work and to make it stop working.
And so, in the meta right now, criminals are really heavy.
The criminal cards are great.
So when we refer to whether or not a card is good or bad, we're gonna take it on probably what you're gonna be playing against in a tournament. Just like if you're going to be running, you're probably going to be playing against Hospiroid. It's probably the best.
Now, as
best.
a posting.
But that's just a good thing to think about. So the two cards that really make this card an issue for me, I play. So I love seeing this card across the table, but there's a lot of people who, like, Shapers are getting really powerful now. There's a lot of people that run Anarchs. This card is a bastard for Anarchs. Like, you are just going to lose your mind seeing this card. My brother Vol plays Anarchs, and he's going to need some serious parasites, and it's got to be a trap, which I think segues really good into one of the questions that we talked about before this, whether or not you'd want to res this through other means.
That's correct. There are other ways in this game to res a piece of ice. Priority requisition, accelerated beta test, they ignore costs to res an ice, and that includes forfeiting the agenda. Now, if you're going to combo those into your deck, I can see this card.
This card is going to become a different beast when you do that. This card on a trap level works really well. That's where I think I like it the best. If I was to put this in my deck, I would use it more as a trap. I like it less using those cards to flip it over for free, because I just find it to be like, it's just going to be a server that I'm not going to focus on anymore.
I'll elaborate on that as well. So if it has been flipped up by other means, meaning it hasn't been sprung on you, so you can essentially avoid it. All it has become at that point now is just any other ice, because the runner simply knows what's there and will prepare themselves for it, right? So, and if they're going to prepare themselves for Archer, you may as well have just played any other ice that they're going to have to prepare themselves for.
The most powerful tool in a corporation's toolbox is anonymity. You want the runner to think that every unrest piece of ice is an Archer. Like, that's kind of what you want to bluff on. And the longer they stay down and the longer they're hidden, the bigger they grow in your mind. That's the way that I've always thought about ice, because when you just lay an ice at the first game and I see how much money you have, I'm like, oh, that's, if I'm playing Weyland or generally anybody, I'm like, okay, that's probably an ice wall, a wall static, or an enigma. You're going to play something that you could play at that time. But late game, if there's a couple pieces of ice out that I haven't seen yet, every ice, it's just going to be building up in my head, and it's all going to be turning into Archers, especially if they have 1-point agendas out on the table. I think this card is a lot better when used as a trap. I think, I personally don't like the res cards in any situation.
It's more effective when used as a trap. More effective, for sure.
So, that was talking about the timing of the res. What about the order of the install? Where are you putting this in a line of ice? Is Archer strong enough to protect a server by itself, or can I have 3 ice out and it's the middle one because I'm going to spring a trap? Like, how are you installing this and using this?
So there's the two scenarios in my head. There's the one where you're playing. This really, to me, is a middle game ice. So you're either going to put it in the front of a server in the middle of the game to try to bait them into running at it, or you're going to be putting it just directly in the middle of a server. If you play it too early, I think it runs the risk of people finding out what it is. Especially if it's over your R&D. If that's the only piece of ice over your R&D, or if I'm playing,
and if you haven't scored agendas yet.
Yeah, and I'm just like, why are you letting me run through your R&D every time?
It's either an Archer or a Janus.
Yeah, it's going to turn into a very problematic ice. But then that's where I would play a Forged Activation and just kind of see where it is. So that's what I would do.
How can I beat this card if I'm running against it?
You would be playing a Criminals deck, because you could what is it called? Forged activation orders on this thing, and either make them pay an agenda when they don't want to, or they're simply just going to trash the bloody thing, and you'll know what it was. And the other one, emergency shutdown. So provided this thing isn't sitting in front of their HQ, you can run at their HQ and then basically de-res the thing. and then they're going to have to pay yet another agenda to get the thing back up and going again. Or, again, not trap you with it and spring it by some other means, but then you know where it is again.
It's tough right now because at the beginning of the game, in the game's infancy, I mean, the game is still in its infancy, but like right at the beginning with all the core sets, this just scared the crap out of everybody. It was just, if you wanted to play a good ice, you were splashing Archer. I just remember in all of our meta, you saw Archer and Tollboost, just Archer and Tollboost everywhere. And in the same vein, you saw a lot of ice walls, just because ice wall is the cheapest way to keep somebody out of a deck. But now it's turned into something where I think the people who used it before are trying to cling on to everything that's good about it. You know what I mean? They're like, no, it's not bad. It's not bad. But now you see just so many people taking out Toll Boosts, taking out Janices, or at least scaling back. I remember seeing it was just three Toll Boosts, and that's just how it was. It was 3 Toll Boosts, 3 Archers. If you were running an Archer deck, 3 of them. Mandatory had 3 of them in your deck. You'd never want one of these. You want it to be something that you can bank on. But now just the way the game's changing, it's just not working for me. The way my brother ran it, and we took it out of his deck probably 2-3 weeks ago before the tournament. He's not running it anymore.
As a runner, do you need to prep for Archer these days? If you run into an early Archer and that Corp can activate it, he's killing your rig.
I think it depends on the runner. I think that if I was in the situation of running Archer, which I don't, but if I was to put my shoes in an Archer player, if I saw criminals, I would probably not even play it. I would probably not even install it.
Yeah.
Right, and I think we could all agree on that one. But you're taking a risk and assuming that they're not going to be splashing Forge activation orders or emergency shutdown, which are pretty splashable cards. They're pretty expensive, but they're easily splashable, and a lot of people do like them. But I think it depends who I'm going to see. I'm gonna hesitate playing them first off, but if I'm going to put them on the table, it's probably going to be against. I'm really going to use them against a Shaper, and Anarchs have a problem dealing with it. So I think if I saw a criminal, I probably wouldn't.
Any half decent criminal player can walk right through this.
Which is another thing about the game, which the meta is very criminal heavy right now. So that's what I think scales it back to just not being a card that's going to be played a lot. The meta could change where Anarchs become the new tournament list, and maybe it is a more viable card against an Anarch deck, right? But right now, I just don't think if you were playing really competitive style, which I think we're trying to portray as more of a competitive style. I'm not seeing it being played, but I could very well be wrong.
So bouncing off that point, it costs 2 to splash this in another faction. Are you going to splash Archer across anything else other than Weyland?
Myself personally, no. Because I'm going to, you could put it in a Haas Bioroid and then spring it to life by some other means other than sacrificing your agendas, but that is simply just not worth it. You could use literally any other ice at that point in time and accomplish the same thing. So, to me, it's only going to be worth it if you got this thing in your Weyland deck and you've already scored a couple of 1-pointers that you don't really care about, and you got a good money rig going on, and everything's working out for you. Then you lay it as a trap.
It's funny because you could. I think I just picked it up now. We're kind of tiptoeing around dissing it. I think we are all on the level of not liking it personally, but that does not mean it doesn't have its implications. In the perfect scenario, this card is going to ruin your freaking day. It's just going to tear you down. If you've spent your turns building a rig, that's going to give the Corp a lot of money. Yeah. It's going to let them advance, and then that just means that every second you spent building a rig, they're just tearing down.
Yeah. That minute you make a run, and all you've got is a barrier and a code gate breaker, and that's all you've got. You're missing that Sentry one, and then you run into this thing, and your game is over. When we bring
it back to the splashing aspect, I think that this card is, if you're going to use it, now I'm going off of that whole fact, if you've made the decision to use it, I think Genteki is out. Genteki does not want this card. It is so hard for Genteki to already score agendas, let alone throw them away.
They can't have it.
We don't have a 1-point agenda. It's not out yet for Hospiroid, but that's the other one that doesn't have an agenda, but it will be coming out. But NBN loves this card, and Weyland loves this card. Weyland loves it because it's theoretically a good card, and it's got a 0 splash value. NBN loves it because they have those agendas to throw away. It's easy for them to score it. And they really don't have a lot of heavy-hitting ice. And when it comes down to throwing away agendas, they can do it so easy, and the cost is very low. So to them, it's easier to put on the field. Yeah, I think the people who like it are going to run it, and I think the people who don't aren't. It's that simple.
Let's score it.
Out of 7, this was a tricky one because
we specifically made 7. We decided on it because 7. There's 7 agenda points you need to win, but there's also no middle number.
There is no middle number, so
you're not scoring
halvesies
on
higher
this
than
graph.
average. Right?
You're either putting it in your deck or you're not putting it in your deck. So this is where he's going to choke on his.
His system. It's beautiful, but
so when you break it down
tough.
like that, I'm not a player, and this is going to be a huge tell for anyone who ever sees me in Worlds. If I ever make it there,
he's gonna crush you. I'm gonna boost him up. Yeah. He's our best player.
I don't play the bluffs. I don't like to give up my points. If I've worked hard to get an agenda, I don't like to sacrifice it. Scored is scored for me. As of right now, I'm not forfeiting anything to res this card up. It's not worth it. This card is too expensive for me. It's out. Right now, it's I don't know. Like I say, it's good in the situation, but I'm hovering 2 to 3 right now. And
well, you got to pick one. What'll it be?
Yeah, we said no halves.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 3.
It could ruin your day. It could.
If you come up against this early and as a in the rig building process, this is a slap to the face. But I'm not putting it in.
Okay, I'm going off of a pure, very aggressive runner. I generally don't have a lot of programs that can be trashed because I just don't play a lot of programs. 80% of my deck is events. To me, the scariest part of that ice is the trash program. But it doesn't scare me at all. I don't think that it works on a very good level for a surprise factor, because generally if you're playing against a deck and you see that they have a certain amount and they're really banking, you could see when they're banking on that one piece of unresed ice to protect their server. And you can sort of call it out. But aside from the fact that I'm a criminal player, I do not run a lot of programs. The scariest part of that is the trashing programs, which don't scare me. So I'm going to rate that at a very low level too. I'm going to go to 3.
Yeah.
Just because Jamie wanted it at a 2.
If you can't bluff, this card is worthless. If you have the worst poker face in the world...
No, but see, I can bluff, and that's basically how I play this game entirely. I even run my criminals as a bluff, and I love that aspect. And this card only works for me in a bluffing situation. But it's just, I think I'm going to go on record and say I think trashing programs is crap. I think it's not a viable way to play. It kind of is just a speed bump. It's not a game-winning thing like a lot of people thought originally.
So, myself personally, again, it could potentially be a game wrecker. It could really, really ruin somebody's day if you play it properly. And I should say, but to play it properly is incredibly difficult, situational. It's in my brain. It's not something that I would bring to a card game anymore. So, rating from me, and again, for all you people out there who say, yeah, but there's other ways to bring it out, but then you could just be bringing out any other kind of ice, right? There's better things to do with that. This thing is a 2 from me. It's a 2. Actually, you know what? It's a 1.
Wow.
Yeah, for the way my brain works, it's a 1 because I can't even justify getting rid of a 1-point agenda. I can't.
Now maybe
it's what you need to win.
I just thought about this right now, but this could just be very, very well in the fact that this was just so. This archer is burned into everybody's mind, so everybody's worried about running into an archer, and we kind of play to that standard where it's like, oh, that could be an archer. So maybe like a year from now, when we go a dry spell where we don't even see a single card like this, and you know, a year from now we play in a tournament scene and nobody's using it, and bam, it hits you. That's going to be a punch in the mouth.
That'll be good. And going off that year from now thing, in 2 years from now, after the post date of this, if there is not hoverboards, then Back to the Future lied to us, and I will not be a happy camper. Anyway.
Like this just on that fact.